There's nothing worse than a show you love coming to an end, but at least in these cases, we know why it had to happen.
When Two Broke Girls premiered in the 2011 CBS fall lineup, reviews for the sitcom were decidedly mixed. The Hollywood Reporter declared the show to be a disappointment, conceding it actually had potential but has squandered it away every week on cheap, predictable, and unfunny jokes.
Wait, why are we doing this again?
Meanwhile, Vulture criticized the show for more than just bad jokes, asking, does it have to be so mean?
So order something else, put it in your pie hole, and get on with your damn life.
Later that season, a press tour at the Television Critics Association turned ugly as journalists hammered the series' stars and producers about the show's, quote, one-note supporting characters, outdated racial stereotypes, and the dependence on innuendos. And future seasons saw reviews become more pointed. By 2016, the Boston Globe even asked, is Two Broke Girls the worst sitcom on TV? The show featured plenty of characters who some felt were problematic, most of whom made up the diner's supporting cast, which was described by The New Yorker as having been conceived in terms so racist it is less offensive than baffling.
Okay, but I would have only one. When I get the tummy, single ladies call me Buddha and rub me for luck.
A review in The Guardian went even further, singling out the diner's owner, Han Lee, played by actor Matthew Moy. It read, short and work-obsessed, Lee is ridiculed for his broken English and failing to get U.S. culture. Speaking with the LA Times, Moy defended his characterization, explaining, I know that a lot of people had concerns about Han and the accent, but the comedy on Two Broke Girls always comes from a place of love. It's never mean. We're a comedy, and we often go right to the edge. It doesn't bother me. Beth Bears also spoke out against the criticism, telling Entertainment Weekly, people are always going to have a problem with something.
Who's a team player? What?
Racist stereotypes and flat jokes weren't the only issues at hand. The show's unabashedly raunchy humor was also a problem for some critics, as crude jokes simply felt out of place on the primetime series. A 2017 piece in the Washington Post called the series the, quote, filthiest show on network television. But Two Broke Girls also made headlines for riling up angry viewers, prompting dozens to issue formal complaints to the FCC.
More.
Really?
Trust me.
As Adweek reported in 2014, the FCC logged 91 complaints about the show. One complaint accused the entire show of being full of, quote, explicit language.
One pastrami. Can you do me a favor, Dollface? Make it so big and thick you can't get your mouth around it. Can you do that?
Yet another complainant asked the FCC, do the writers want to break down barriers to good taste and spew coarse language during family hour? This is your job to try to keep television from becoming a cesspool and allow everyone to enjoy profane, free shows. When Two Broke Girls wrapped season 6, there was no indication that the show wasn't going to be renewed for number 7. After all, ratings had remained relatively solid. According to TV by the Numbers, season 6 of the show was in line with other comedies CBS chose to renew, such as Man with a Plan and Life in Pieces. However, a closer look indicated that, despite seemingly solid numbers, viewership was steadily declining, according to TV series Finale. When the 6th season of Two Broke Girls premiered in October 2016, the episode earned more than 6.3 million total viewers, but the season finale in April 2017 garnered just over 4.5 million.
Everything sucks.
While ratings weren't the only reason behind the cancellation of the show, shedding nearly 2 million viewers over the course of a season is never good news for a series, no matter the network. Fans of Two Broke Girls were unaware of a behind-the-scenes tug-of-war between CBS, the network that aired the show, and Warner Bros. Television, the studio that produced it. But according to a 2017 report from Deadline, so-called intense negotiations had been taking place between the network and the studio. The sitcom had certainly been profitable for Warner Bros., with Broadcasting and Cable reporting in 2012 that Two Broke Girls had negotiated a deal for syndicated reruns to air on TBS at a record-setting $1.7 million per episode. But CBS had no ownership stake and therefore received none of those profits. Considering CBS canceled the show shortly after the syndication deal, it seems clear the network was influenced by the situation.
No, we're business women and we need to keep track of every penny.
Still, showrunner Michelle Nader was thrown for a loop when the cancellation news broke and vowed to somehow keep the series going. She told TV Line, "This is not the end for these girls. We're not finished and we don't want to be finished, and I don't think the audience is finished." CBS scheduling chief Kelly Call, who would later be promoted to network president, offered his explanation as to why the show was axed in a 2017 interview with Deadline, saying that Two Broke Girls had simply run its course. According to Call, there were better shows waiting in the wings. He told the outlet, "Our comedy development this year was very good, and whenever your comedy development is really good, it puts a lot of pressure on some of your older shows. We felt creatively it was time, and we had to create some space on the schedule to get some new product on." The cancellation of the show surprised its cast as much as it shocked the fans who had devoted 6 years to its main characters, Max, played by Kat Dennings, and Caroline, played by Beth Bears. And because Season 6 wrapped with the expectation that the show would return, what ended up being the series finale failed to tie up any loose ends. Speaking with Yahoo TV, Dennings lamented that fans never got to see her character's wedding.
Gonna give me a drink?
Are you gonna give me a reason you're here?
Are you gonna give me a reason you're so beautiful?
Are you gonna give me a reason? Okay, fine, I'll give you a drink.
Dennings told the outlet, "Maybe one day we'll wrap it all up with a 2-hour special where we see all of these things happen. I would love that. I think the people that watched the show for so many years deserve some closure, and I would love to give that to them." Regardless of the behind-the-scenes drama, there's no question that Two Broke Girls fans would love to see Max and Caroline reunite.
The Big Bang Theory made it past the initial cutting floor and flew through 12 seasons, but there were hints of an impending conclusion even earlier than the actual series finale date in May of 2019. In a podcast interview with actor David Tennant on David Tennant Does a Podcast with, Jim Parsons, who played Sheldon, revealed some additional details about the series and his thoughts on when the contracts could end. Parsons told Tennant about his final contract, which covered a period of only 2 years, saying, "I kind of had a suspicion in my heart, I think, that was going to be it for me when I did sign that contract, but you never say never, and who knows." Without those last 2 seasons, viewers would have missed out on quite a lot that happened in each of the characters' lives. The series finale alone was jam-packed with surprises and interesting twists that involved a Nobel Prize, an unexpected pregnancy, and even more. Jim Parsons' character Sheldon had multiple quirks that we came to love. Most of the time, those quirks annoyed and even angered the other characters on the show.
So strange. No matter how thoughtless and selfish he is, I still love him.
Despite all of this, though, Sheldon seemed to be the main star of the show in many of its fans' minds. It really isn't terribly astonishing, then, that the producers just couldn't envision continuing the series without Parsons. Before deciding to leave the show, Parsons had a few things going on behind the scenes, including a dearly beloved dog's passing, and these personal events contributed to his decision to walk away from the show once his contract was finished. And Chuck Lorre, one of 2 creators of the show, told the Los Angeles Times that he, quote, "just couldn't imagine doing this show if any of the principals were not there." Parsons was concerned about preventing the show from getting stale, but it turns out that his late father also played a role in his decision to walk away from the show, as Parsons shared on David Tennant's podcast. When making his decision about whether or not to continue doing the show, Parsons, who was starring in the Broadway production of The Boys in the Band during the final 2 years of taping the TV series, spent some time remembering his father, who had passed away at the age of 52. Parsons came to the stunning realization that he would be 46 years old when the show concluded in May 2019. The fact that this was only 6 years away from the age when his father died seemed to serve as a bit of a wake-up call for Parsons, who noted that he thought, "I think there's other things I need to try and do." It may come as a surprise to be informed that the style of The Big Bang Theory is actually almost obsolete. The main difference in its filming style compared to other shows involves camera usage, specifically single camera versus multi-camera shooting. As Screencraft explains, single camera use is something that has become more commonplace for TV shows filmed within the last 10 years or so. The term single camera is actually rather misleading because it doesn't refer to the number of cameras utilized for production. Instead, it essentially signifies realized that the series was filmed with no audience, so it feels more like a movie set than a TV show. The Big Bang Theory was a multi-use camera production, meaning most of their scenes were shot in front of an audience. That's right, people were able to sit in and watch the filming of their presumably favorite TV show. While this type of filming is no doubt a fascinating experience, it seems that networks are moving away from live studio audiences for comedy sitcoms, making the show something of a dinosaur in today's television world. Ratings are the lifeblood of television. Pilot episodes get killed if ratings are low, and an entire series may be cut if viewers aren't tuning in as expected. One interesting detail about The Big Bang Theory is that its ratings were declining during some of the last few seasons. While in its 2015-2016 season, the series raked in over 20 million viewers. During 2016 and 2017, the season's ratings dropped and pulled in about 1 million viewers fewer than the prior season. By 2018, the average number of viewers the series garnered each week hovered at approximately 18 million. 1 or 2 million fewer viewers may not seem like such a huge deal at first glance. After all, when the numbers are in the millions like this, what would a drop of 2 million viewers amount to? While the ending of the show wasn't necessarily attributed to this drop in ratings over 3 seasons, it could have factored into the decision to end the series. The show officially ended in 2019 with the conclusion of season 12. But could the beginning of the end have started even sooner than that? That appears to be the case, according to an article published by Metro. Fans of the show will likely recall that the premise of the series originally centered on a group of nerdy scientists, all of whom were single. While the humor and group of friends remained a constant throughout all 12 seasons, there was something that fans may not have cared to see as much of: the romance factor. Daniel Clifford of Broadband Choices told Metro, "The show is about friendship and not judging a book by its cover. But fast forward to season 8 and all the characters are in relationships. 2 with each other, and the clever jokes about science have been replaced with ones about relationships and dating." Could it be that the scriptwriters struggled even back in season 8 with new material? Perhaps this is why romance began to play a larger role in the series, possibly even contributing to the decision to end the show. There was an old saying that with age comes wisdom. In some cases, this old adage can most certainly hold some truth. In the case of The Big Bang Theory, however, this saying doesn't seem to hold water. Actually, the show didn't really seem to age all that well, according to one piece published on The Guardian. The article stated that the idea behind the show was becoming, quote, as creepy as it is depressing. The writer made an interesting observation. When the show began, the characters were young people who were roommates and friends, but by season 12, some of the actors were in their 40s. While 40 is not old by any means, in this particular case, with age came a slight creepiness factor since the characters still clung to one another as grown men.
Do you know how creepy that sounds? Yeah.
Fans may have been shocked, at least a little heartbroken at the cancellation of the series. However, the cast members didn't seem too surprised that their 12-year run was ending. E! News interviewed Johnny Galecki, whose character Leonard was a mainstay of the series. Galecki mentioned that the actors did talk about the show's end, though apparently it was mainly just to share the cast's collective sadness when the series would come to a close. Galecki stated, "But I think at this point, everyone's very comfortable with 12 seasons being a good time to go home and see our families." It seems, according to Galecki's point of view, that the cast as a whole was content with their 12 seasons. If so, this must have made it easier all around for the cast and crew to finish wrapping up the filming of the series. It is somewhat comforting in a sense that the actors were fine with letting go of the show. Along with measuring ratings, money is another big player in the determination of whether or not sitcoms will continue for another season. Among the many financial considerations that go along with producing a TV series are the salaries for its cast and crew. Of particular interest, as highlighted by Variety, was a listing of finalized salaries for 2 of the actresses in the last 2 seasons, Mayim Bialik and Melissa Rauch. Both stars signed contracts that brought them $500,000 for every episode filmed in the last 2 seasons The Big Bang Theory aired. This amount was actually a huge jump in pay for the 2 actresses, who'd previously earned between $175,000 and $200,000 for each episode. Meanwhile, Johnny Galecki, Jim Parsons, Kaylee Cuoco, Kunal Nair, and Simon Helberg were each paid $900,000 for every episode during the final 2 years of the show, taking a reduction of $100,000 each to help fund the additional earnings for Bialik and Rausch. With higher salaries for the majority of the cast, some nearing $1 million, CBS may not have found the show to be worth such exorbitant paychecks. Oddly enough, for a show that ended up being cancelled, The Big Bang Theory almost got renewed for another season of filming. Kelly Call, president of CBS Entertainment, mentioned to Entertainment Weekly that there were, quote, preliminary discussions happening in August of 2018, which centered on the possibility of filming a 13th season for the series. These talks were evidently news to Bill Prady, the executive producer of the series. He tweeted a simple, "huh?" to the news on Twitter, and that one-word tweet spoke volumes. Could this discrepancy in responses from executives involved in the show have contributed to the end of the series? It isn't immediately clear, but it is interesting to note Prady's tweet in reaction to the announcement of ongoing discussions about filming a 13th season. Of course, season 13 sadly never happened, so we likely won't ever know for sure what could have been. What is the one piece of good news about a long-standing, successful TV series drawing to its inevitable conclusion? The hope of a reunion down the road, naturally. We don't mean to burst anyone's bubble, but in the case of The Big Bang Theory, it doesn't look like we should hold our collective breath for a reunion anytime soon. Actress Mayim Bialik spoke to Metro about the likelihood of a reunion just over 1 year after the series finale aired. Bialik wasn't aware of any type of reunion show planned at that time, and she added, "Again, there's a lot of legal stuff which is very boring about why shows do have reunions and don't, but I think it's probably too soon." Our apologies to the fans of The Big Bang Theory to have to report this prediction. Here's hoping for a full cast and crew reunion of The Big Bang Theory sometime down the road.
Grace and Frankie had to end sometime. Why did they cancel the show? We have some theories. Although the friendship between Lily Tomlin and Jane Fonda's characters in Grace and Frankie changes and grows throughout the series, a stronger sense of character development would have made for a better show. For example, Tomlin's Frankie is your typical Southern California hippie with an interest in drugs and shamanism.
You know what? This is not the energy I wanted to start my vision quest with.
Meanwhile, Fonda's Grace is a status-conscious woman who mourns the loss of her youthful good looks. As you can see, it's all a bit on the nose. Grace and Frankie are essentially caricatures rather than fully developed individuals. Given the talents of Tomlin and Fonda, it's a shame the writers couldn't find a way to flesh out deeper personalities for the characters. That's a missed opportunity that might have cost the show in the long run. In 2015, there was a bit of a controversy related to Grace and Frankie. At a press conference, Jane Fonda dropped a bomb about her and Lily Tomlin's salaries. According to Vanity Fair, Fonda said, "Tomlin found out Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen are getting the same salary that we are. That doesn't make us happy."
I just need to do what I always do when I'm blue.
Some fans were outraged by this information and started a petition, demanding that Netflix execs increase compensation for Tomlin and Fonda. After all, they're the stars of the show, and their male counterparts are supporting cast members. Ultimately, the petition amassed around 9,000 signatures. In an interesting twist, a publicist later reached out to Vanity Fair to supposedly clarify things. In a joint statement, Tomlin and Fonda said, "We made a joke in an interview about our salaries which was taken out of context. This just reminds us to be mindful of how things come across in interviews. We appreciate everyone's support and the attention to this issue, but the structure of Grace and Frankie is fair." Grace and Frankie has been lauded by many critics as a funny show that's ushered in a new age of comedy, picking up where the beloved series The Golden Girls left off. And seeing as the show will ultimately run for 7 seasons, it's safe to say that plenty of viewers loved the show's sense of humor. But some critics think the show is a little lacking in the hilarity department. As Mike points out, many of the jokes sound dated, like they came out of the 1990s.
But we are also homosexual law and bed partners with each other in life.
Similarly, Grace and Frankie often make bitter comments about their ex-husband's sexuality, and they almost always sound reductive.
Try to be straight for one more brunch.
Perhaps if these jokes were sharper and more sophisticated, Netflix might have given Grace and Frankie an 8th season. Some critics have argued that the queer themes in Grace and Frankie seem tacked on. As Mike points out, the queer premise was added after the two leads had already been cast. Clearly, the priority was having a show that starred Jane Fonda and Lily Tomlin. In an interview with Salon, the show's creator Marta Kaufman said, "Once we knew that Jane and Lily were both interested, we had to come up with an idea that would be worthy of them because they're both so extraordinary." When her development executive suggested that the characters' husbands fall in love, Kaufman simply loved the idea. Perhaps that goes some way in explaining the lukewarm chemistry between Sam Waterston and Martin Sheen. They seem more like two really good friends, less like lovers who can finally stop living in secrecy after a clandestine 20-year love affair. Does this body language scream passionate romance to you?
This is my home, and you are my life. I'm sorry about the text mix-up.
Waterston and Sheen certainly have the acting chops to convey fiery passion, so why aren't they doing it on Grace and Frankie? Perhaps that was just one more nail in the coffin for the show. It can be frustrating to have one of your favorite Netflix shows canceled, but you better get used to it. According to Deadline, the streaming giant is pulling the plug on more and more shows after just 2 or 3 seasons. So while you may be bummed that Grace and Frankie is coming to an end, you can at least be grateful that we've been able to enjoy it for so long. After all, 7 seasons is nothing to sniff at, and all told, it's been quite a ride.
Ocean, here I come!
Downton Abbey quietly premiered in the UK in 2010. At the time, no one could have expected how successful it would be on both sides of the Atlantic. In its early days, fans wanted Downton to last forever. However, here's why it ran its course after 6 seasons. Downton Abbey is a show built around an ensemble cast of characters. Even so, certain members of Downton take centre stage. Mary Crawley, Mr. Bates, Branson, and of course, the Dowager Countess. The Crawley matriarch was truly the heart of Downton. Without Maggie Smith as the Dowager there to dole out some wisdom and gossip, the show wouldn't be the same.
How you hate to be wrong.
I wouldn't know. I'm not familiar with the sensation.
In an interview with the Sunday Times, the Downton star announced she would leave the show after its 6th season, before PBS announced it would also be the show's final season. Smith complained that her role on Downton ruined any shred of privacy she had, noting that she could no longer leave her home without being recognised. What's sad is I've gone through my whole life without any of that. I could go round galleries and things on my own, and I just can't do it now. While Smith announced she'd be leaving after the 6th season as the 5th came to a close, show creator Julian Fellows was telling outlets that he didn't know if Downton Abbey would be cancelled or not, according to Vanity Fair. Throughout the show's run, the Abbey faced all sorts of issues. Lord Grantham blew all of the estate's money in a bogus railway investment, failed to keep up with modernisation, and at several points pondered shutting down Downton and moving his family altogether. In 1926, when Downton's final season takes place, the United Kingdom's general strike led the working class to fight back at the aristocratic system that depended on them for cheap labour. This, coupled with the fact that World War I opened up more opportunities for women, led estates like Downton Abbey to lose their workforce. Adrian Tinniswood, author of The Long Weekend, Life in the English Country House Between the Wars, told Time, "These houses were designed to be served by an army of cheap labour, and certainly by 1930, there's a problem in getting domestic staff for a house." And if keeping staff wouldn't be difficult enough for the Crawleys, estates like Downton Abbey became more and more expensive to operate due to increasing taxes. Filming this decline would have made for vastly different seasons if Downton Abbey hadn't been cancelled.
I know, we are only the caretakers of Downton. But Papa, some things have to change.
For the first 5 seasons, fans of Downton Abbey watched diligently as the characters navigated complicated personal lives while doing their best to save their perpetually at-risk estate. After so many years, however, there's only so much an audience can take of Mary juggling suitors, Edith facing setback after setback, or Downton being on the brink of disaster. By the end of season 5, many of the characters' struggles were on the verge of resolution. Edith escaped to London to finally live with her daughter. Mary said goodbye goodbye to the two suitors who never stood a chance, and Anna and Mr. Bates were finally reunited. Everything that happened in season 6 was simply icing on the cake. Arguably, the show could have ended after the 5th season. The Downton Abbey fan base became accustomed to, and perhaps grew to love, the chaotic storylines that seemed to grow more absurd with each new episode. But there's only so long a show can go on without tiring out its audience with what are essentially the same storylines with a fresh coat of paint. In a letter to American fans of Downton Abbey published by PBS, show creator Julian Fellowes admitted that the series is ending and that decision will not be reversed. We wanted to leave while we would still be missed and not wait until everyone was dying to see the back of us. In the first 3 seasons, fans watched Mary and Matthew Crawley go from hating each other to falling in love, getting married and having a baby. However, Matthew and Mary's happy ending was short-lived. According to Town & Country, actor Dan Stevens, who played Matthew, chose not to renew his contract after the first 3 seasons. That same year, Downton Abbey also lost Jessica Brown Finlay, who played Sybil Crawley. According to Fellowes, Finlay was upfront from the beginning about her intention to stay for just 3 seasons. After both Stevens and Finlay left, Downton Abbey did find its footing once again. However, when season 5 ended, 2 more characters said their goodbyes. Downton executive producer Gareth Neame told Deadline that the departures of Alan Leach, who played Tom Branson, and Lily James, who played Rose McClare, left the door open for an eventual return. Still, losing 4 main characters in just 5 seasons is a lot for any show, so it's no wonder the showrunners knew it was the right time to close the curtain and cancel the series. Downton Abbey the movie was a long time coming. In a goodbye letter to fans after the series ended in 2015, creator Julian Fellowes revealed, "There may be a movie, I hope there will be, and there may be a stage play or a musical. I have heard all of them mooted." Right he was. About 2 years after the series ended, the Downton Abbey movie was set to begin production. At the time, Michael Edelstein, NBC Universal International Studios president, said the movie had been, quote, "in the works for some time." So while the series may have ended after 6 seasons, it was clearly never really the last fans would see of Downton. With a show that focuses on its characters and setting just as much, if not more than plot, there can always be another story to tell. In 2012, Downton Abbey said goodbye to stars Dan Stevens and Jessica Brown Finlay, who played Matthew and Sybil Crawley, respectively. As if those losses weren't enough, show creator Julian Fellowes hinted that a new project could pull him away from Downton Abbey in an interview with the New York Times conducted just a year later. Fellowes said that while he hoped not to have to begin work on the NBC series The Gilded Age until Downton was finished, it wasn't realistic for him to do both shows at the same time. Fellowes explained, "I would hope that by the time all the hurdles have been cleared, the timing makes it so I can then concentrate on the new series. And if Downton goes on, of course that's not my decision, then it would be with other writers." While handing over the reins of Downton to other writers was a very real possibility Fellowes faced, he did explain to the New York Times that he'd, quote, "prefer to do everything on his terms." Luckily for Downton fans, Fellowes' project didn't pick up steam until well after Downton Abbey ended. In its early days, Downton Abbey focused on the intricate details of everyday life at Downton, like the mystery of a missing wine bottle or frequent bouts of sisterly tension. But in season 2, all the minutiae started getting tossed aside in favour of larger-than-life plots that felt out of place in the slow-moving world of English aristocracy. According to The Atlantic, the show seemed to lose its footing once the main characters settled into their respective relationships, and that's when some of the more convoluted storylines were introduced. Throughout the course of the show, characters were forced into situations that grew increasingly unrealistic. Mr. Bates and his wife, the sweet-to-a-fault Anna, are both accused of murder, and Matthew Crawley miraculously recovers from being paralysed from the waist down. Later on, Edith has a baby with a man who goes missing while trying to divorce his wife. Despite all this, fans tuned in season after season. In an interview with the New York Times, Downton Abbey creator Julian Fellowes said, "My own belief is that these things have a life, and one of the tricks is to recognize when it's time to come to an end. After 6 seasons, it was Downton Abbey's time." According to the Downton Abbey page on Rotten Tomatoes, the show was generally well received throughout its entire run. However, after an astounding 100% approval rating for season 2, the show lost its way. The convoluted storylines aren't just the opinions of 1 or 2 scorned reviewers who had a bone to pick with the show. In season 3, critics agreed that the show's plots became unsatisfactory. The 4th season of Downton Abbey earned a 73%, proving a souring of critical opinion. Season 4, however, proved to be Downton's lowest point, as the 5th and 6th seasons received an 82% and 91% rating respectively, showing that, if anything, the show definitely ended on a high note. Downton Abbey is cemented in a very specific place and time, an English aristocratic house in the early 20th century. The setting alone presents an issue faced uniquely by historical dramas, that is, a race against the progression of history.
Well, what else could we drink to? We're going forward to the future, not back into the past.
If only we had the choice.
The Crawleys' way of life was very much on the way out in the real timeline of historical events. The show spanned 12 years, beginning in 1912 and ending in 1924. Had the show continued on past its 6th season, the Crawleys would have been taken well into the 1930s, at which point it would have been difficult to believe that Downton as an estate would have survived at all. Given the struggles the fictional estate already faced, combined with the Great Depression that lasted from 1929 to 1933, it's unlikely Downton would come out unscathed. In fact, Time reported that many places like Downton were completely demolished, as staffing and maintenance became at best difficult and at worst downright impossible. Unfortunately, historical dramas like Downton Abbey are just not meant to carry on for 10 or more seasons like shows with modern settings. Inevitably, time passes them by. Though Downton Abbey was a widely beloved show, it wasn't without its critics, some of whom pointed out that the show presents an idealized version of a time in history when the division between the aristocracy and working class seemed absolute. One reviewer wrote in The Guardian that Downton Abbey presented the world of early 20th century English aristocracy and servitude as amicable and even pleasant, and completely ignored the harsh truths of the period.
But he still does not deserve to be addressed in that manner by a footman.
According to one expert the reviewer spoke to, the servants who worked at Downton Abbey would, in real life, be covered in sweat and grime from working all day, and never would have had the time to carry out the subplots laid out for them in the show. As for the Crawleys, their kindness, understanding, and generosity towards the people who worked for them were a far cry from what those relationships were apparently often really like. After 6 seasons, the story of Downton Abbey was simply finished. When viewers said goodbye to the show, every character was seemingly done with their journey. According to Time, Edith finally found love. Mary met her match in Henry Talbot. Carson and Mrs. Hughes got married, and the Downton estate was comfortably modernising. With all of that settled, what more could the show have done? According to creator Julian Fellowes, not much at all. He told Deadline, "What happens in the end with any serial drama is there's a limited number of things that happen to human beings. And I think if you stay too long, you start to repeat. Basically, are we happily married? Do we like our job? Are the children doing well? Are our parents okay? I mean, this is all our lives." When you've explored all of those for all the characters, then I think it's time to say goodbye. And so, with everyone at Downton settled, Fellowes decided it was time to say goodbye. According to The Guardian, that goodbye came with a happy ending for nearly every primary character.
It came as a shock to fans when Pretty Little Liars wrapped after 7 seasons on the air. The identity of A had changed more times than most could keep track of, and the show left plenty of unanswered questions and cliffhangers. Here's why Pretty Little Liars got canceled. For die-hard fans who couldn't get enough of Rosewood, the news that there wouldn't be an 8th season came as a shock. The announcement of the show's cancellation came during a Facebook Live event with the show's creator, Marlene King, and the show's main cast members, Troyan Bellisario, Ashley Benson, Lucy Hale, Shay Mitchell, and Sasha Peterza. The announcement was made halfway through the 7th season. Freeform's executive vice president of programming and development said about the show's ending, "Through brilliant storytelling, compelling characters, and social media phenomena, Pretty Little Liars paved the way for television shows, writers, and cast to interact and engage with audiences on a national and global scale like never before, which led the series to unparalleled success." While Pretty Little Liars had a loyal fan base, the show wasn't critically acclaimed. Shortly after its premiere, Pretty Little Liars was hit with a slew of criticism, including a pretty scathing review in the New York Post, which said, "If you are a parent of someone addicted to Sarah Shepard's Pretty Little Liars young adult novels, have I got a show you will probably hate. For the same reason your daughter will likely fall for this pretty little silly show, you will want to keep her away from it." In the premiere episode alone, viewers saw drug use, an adult relationship with a minor, and, of course, a murder. So it makes sense that parents might not have been enamored with the show. Pretty Little Liars had more twists than most of us could recall, and it left audiences with a lot of questions. Following the announcement of the show's cancellation, Marlene King said in a statement to Variety, "I'm excited for fans to finally have all of their questions answered, and I believe they will be satisfied with the wild ride that is our last 10 episodes."
It's been an epic journey. We've had so much fun. I've made so many great friends.
But we're not so sure that the questions were answered, and some of the cast members were left with cliffhangers too. After the cancellation of the spin-off Pretty Little Liars: The Perfectionists, Sasha Peterza, who played Allison, told Entertainment Tonight, "I would have loved more closure for the fans and more answers for me. I know everybody has Emerson questions, so I think what I've decided is to answer them myself." As Variety reported, ultimately the story had run its course, and the cast, whose contracts were up at the end of season 7, is now free to explore more projects. It's been reported that the network and the studio behind Pretty Little Liars wanted additional seasons of the show, but not everyone was on board. Marlene King reportedly asked the cast who wanted to stay and who wanted to go. Ultimately, King set her sights on other projects. In fact, the showrunner traded Pretty Little Liars for Famous in Love, a since-canceled show starring Bella Thorne. Basically, if the Pretty Little Liars team had made different choices, fans might have gotten even more episodes of the series. Successful spin-offs are hard to pull off, there's no doubt about it, and Pretty Little Liars took a bit of a hit when its spin-off Ravenswood was canceled in 2014 after just one season. ABC Family canceled the show, which saw Pretty Little Liars star Tyler Blackburn return as Caleb after 10 episodes. The show only raked in about 1.4 million viewers and never performed the way that Pretty Little Liars did. Ravenswood was full of the same kinds of twists and turns that Pretty Little Liars brought to the screen, but despite having the same creator and a lot of overlapping themes, the show didn't deliver. Blackburn returned to Pretty Little Liars shortly after the spin-off ended, but the failure must have hurt. Not everyone wanted Pretty Little Liars to endure as long as it did. In fact, some viewers thought the show should have ended after season 2. As noted by Bustle, the show's plot and any sense of realness started to go downhill after the second season, specifically when the series revealed that Mona was A, the girl's online bully. Of course, the Pretty Little Liars creator had other plans, though she didn't even have the idea of an Uber A until the beginning of season 5. As Troyan Bellisario, who played Spencer, told Elle, "I was first told in the beginning of season 5. Marlene took me aside and told me, I have an idea, but I don't know if the network will let me do it. Then she sat me down and explained this whole ending to me. She said, you cannot tell anybody. It might not even happen. So I sat on it for over a year. Then, at the end of season 6, she said, we're going to do it.
Keep the twists and turns and the OMG moments coming."
It's hard to imagine that some of the cast members of Pretty Little Liars were against the show's plot. However, Troyan Bellisario wasn't always on board with the show's twists and turns. It was only after a conversation with one of the show's directors that her perspective began to change, as she told Elle, "I think a lot about stories that are science fiction or fantasy. If your characters live in a world with dragons and magical powers, or in a world where we can easily travel through space and time, then your job is to play it for keeps." Of course, there weren't any dragons in Pretty Little Liars, just a lot of backstabbing. We can imagine that script reads were pretty wild for the actors bringing the Pretty Little Liars world to life. To the television world, ratings mean everything, and Pretty Little Liars started to lose its viewership over time. As noted by TV series Finale, the third season of the show raked in huge numbers of viewers, mostly within the 18 to 49-year-old demographic. The season averaged 1.1 million viewers in the key demographic and 2.59 million viewers overall. But by the 7th season of the show, it was a whole different story. Pretty Little Liars was only hitting about 550,000 viewers in the key demographic, with 1.1 million viewers overall. As for what contributed to the sharp decline, BuzzFeed suggested that viewers grew tired of some of the show's plot points. like the fact that Ezra had a relationship with not just one minor, but two, or that Jenna blackmailed Toby into having a relationship with her despite the fact that they were step-siblings. Some fans just didn't have it in them to see it through to the end. While some casts get incredibly upset when their shows come to an end, the main cast members of Pretty Little Liars were ready to sign on to other projects, which makes sense since they had spent 7 years playing the same characters. Shay Mitchell, who played Emily, had already started branching out with the comedy Mother's Day. Lucy Hale, who played Aria, signed with ICM, and Troyan Bellisario had signed onto an indie project called Sister Cities on Lifetime. By the time Pretty Little Liars ended, Ashley Benson, who played Hannah, had starred in Spring Breakers, and Janelle Parrish had been a contestant on Dancing with the Stars. One thing was clear: the cast was ready to move on. If all fans can agree on one thing about Pretty Little Liars, it's that the show was stressful to watch. From the up and down relationships and the breakups, to the untimely deaths, to the cover-ups, to the killings, viewers really didn't know what to expect from one episode to the next. And it looks like the emotional toll of the show was also a burden for creator Marlene King as well. In an interview with TV Line, King divulged, "It's such a weird feeling of mixed emotions, but relief is probably the biggest word of all. All that mythology was taking up so much space in my brain, and I can now release it."
This is kind of like the love letter to the fans this season.
It was hard for us to watch and process the show, let alone be the mastermind that cooked up all the drama, so we hope that King got the much-deserved break she needed after the show came to a close. Among the award shows that exist, one is both brutally honest and a direct reflection of the fans, and that's the Teen Choice Awards. The awards rely on votes from viewers, which makes the popularity of certain TV shows painfully clear. In 2010, the year that Pretty Little Liars premiered, the show was nominated for 3 awards: Choice Summer TV Show, Choice Summer TV Star Male, and Choice Summer TV Star Female. The program swept all 3 categories, solidifying its place on the stage. 3 years later, Pretty Little Liars made such a huge dent in the awards that it was easy to think that the show had won every category. It garnered awards for Choice TV Show, Choice TV Actor, Choice TV Actress, Choice TV Villain, Choice Summer TV Show, and Choice Summer TV Star Male. That was the show's peak, and by the time the 2017 Teen Choice Awards rolled around, Pretty Little Liars only snagged 2 awards. Leave it to teens to tell you exactly what they think. Pretty Little Liars had its viewers divided. Some hated Toby and Spencer together, while others thought that Jenna was behind everything. Still, other viewers thought that Aria and Ezra were the worst, while other fans had theories as to who A was and who really killed Allison. Well, as Pretty Little Liars progressed, fan theories began to be either proven or debunked, and by the time the 2-hour series finale rolled around, fans were seriously involved in the Uber A mystery. Sadly, some fans were so upset with the series finale that they wrote their own endings. Some viewers were upset that one of the main villains of the show, Bethany, didn't even appear on screen until season 6. Others were confused by the whole evil British twin thing that went down with Spencer and Alex Drake. And the thing that caps all the frustration off is that there were 13 deaths in Pretty Little Liars, and few of them were explained. While fans and theorists alike can critique and complain about Pretty Little Liars, the show had a massive influence not just on its audience, but on the teen television scene as a whole. The show paved the way for a new generation of young adult dramas, not just because of its engaging plot, but because of the ways in which social media was used to further the show's audience and appeal. Until Pretty Little Liars burst onto the scene, the only young adult show that even dared to be as dramatic was The Vampire Diaries. Since The Liars graced our screens, teen dramas have taken a bunch of different forms, and as such have really pushed the boundaries.
An unexpected departure, potentially killing off a beloved character and waiting for forgiveness. What really kept Home Improvement from continuing might surprise you. Long before the Property Brothers and Hometown became must-watch viewing for Reno fans, there was Home Improvement. The hit ABC sitcom, which ran from 1991 to 1999, starred Tim Allen as Tim Taylor, a tool salesman who juggled the demands of his local cable show with the joys and headaches of family life. His tool-time assistant, Al Borland, played by Richard Karn, was there to clean up the mess when his partner inevitably tried to add more power to power drills and Christmas lights.
We'll be using a 1.5-inch auger bit.
Come on, Al. That's a girl drill. We need a man drill, don't we?
Taylor's traditional take on masculinity provided much of the humor both at home and on the tool show. Providing additional humor and advice was the Taylor's next-door neighbor, Wilson, played by Earl Hindman, whose face was always half hidden by his picket fence or other masks. Over its 8 seasons, Home Improvement saw the 3 Taylor boys grow into young men. Oldest son Brad, played by Zachary Ty Bryan, went off to college, while middle son Randy, played by Jonathan Taylor Thomas, entered an environmental studies program in Central America. Mom Jill, played by Patricia Richardson, pursued her own educational dreams by entering graduate school toward a psychology degree. The series ended in a 3-episode finale during which Tim left Tool Time, Al got married, and the Taylors prepared to move to Indiana for Jill's new job. However, viewers might have enjoyed at least one more year of Tim's antics, if not for a personal decision by one cast member. Home Improvement may have been a star vehicle for Tim Allen, but his co-stars were equally crucial to the show's success. As Allen's wife, Jill Taylor, Richardson was loving, but also a great foil for Taylor's would-be macho persona. Richardson wasn't the first choice for the part, and she nearly turned down the opportunity because she didn't want to play a thankless mom with no personality or interests of her own, as she told Entertainment Tonight in 2020. However, she was offered the role without even having to audition. Jill embodied the empowered woman ideal of the 90s, and the story arc of the finale showed the family uprooting to help her reach her dream of being a psychologist. Richardson's real life, however, was far more complicated. In 1995, she divorced her husband and had split custody of their 3 young children, Henry, Roxanne, and Joseph. At the time, she was also helping care for her medically fragile parents. As Richardson explained to Closer magazine, the show's long hours were taking a toll both on her and her family, and she walked. She explained, "I don't mean to sound like, oh, I sacrificed this huge thing for my children, because it's what I wanted." It was a choice she would make twice more as a cast member of Strong Medicine and The West Wing, when once again she felt her career was interfering with quality parenting time. To this day, Patricia Richardson worries Tim Allen has never really forgiven her for leaving Home Improvement. The show had already taken a hit that year with the unexpected departure of Jonathan Taylor Thomas, who played middle son Randy. However, losing Richardson was the final blow for the show. As she told Entertainment Tonight, the producers were willing to kill off her character and have the series continue with Tim Taylor as a widower.
And then Tim was like, I don't think we can do that. Then he went out and said, oh, I think it's time to end Home Improvement.
Apparently, Allen has gotten over any resentment he had over Richardson's leaving Home Improvement. She has guested on Last Man twice, in addition to appearances in Hallmark movies, also joining their former co-star for guest appearances on the show, Richard Karn and Taylor Thomas. Sadly, fans will never get to see a cameo from Tim's half-hidden neighbor Wilson. Earl Hindman died of lung cancer in 2003.